Well, good morning, Mariner fans, or shall I say bad morning, because the Mariners have started the second half losing 2 in a row. And I know that I'm sure maybe none of you are going to watch a show at 7:30 in the morning. Chances are you're probably sleeping in, but hey, we have to vent. We've got a lot to say because I consider this the emergency show because of how the Mariners have done in the last 2 games. And boy, must I say, it is absolutely unacceptable. But before we get into that, how are you doing, Steve? How are you holding up?
Oh, I'm excellent, man. I'm always good. But yeah, the idea that you can have a stranglehold in the division, and make no mistake, they had a stranglehold in the division. 10 games up at one point, and less than a month later, they gave it up. And I think we all understood that this offense was flawed, and there were certain aspects of what this team could and could not do. But, the fact that the guys that were supposed to be your guys can't hit a fastball. They can't find a sacrifice fly. They can't get a single with runners in scoring position to at least try to extend innings to get them to a point where maybe they could have a big inning. It's 100% unexcusable. And now they've lost 5 in a row. There was a point there from July 4th, I think July 4th to the 15th, or July 4th to the 12th, where they had won 5 out of 7, including 3 in a row. And then they go to Anaheim against an inferior team, an inferior opponent. And every metric says that the Mariners should, at least take 3 or 4 sweep going into the All-Star break. They end up losing 3 or 4, and now they've dropped the first two to the Astros and in embarrassing fashion. The first game you get shut out 3-0, and you show absolutely no heart. And then last night, Julio hits a home run, and the Mariners have a lead, and then Ryan Stanek gets blown up, and then all of a sudden, that's it. It's like they fold, they crumble, and now they've lost 5 in a row. It's unacceptable. It's 100% unacceptable at this point.
It 100% is, but before we get into that, and we have some key points of where we are at, for any Mariner fans that still feel like they got to go to a Mariners game because it's going to be a beautiful day, I got something for you guys, and you've probably seen it only hundreds of times, but here it is. SeatGeek is a mobile ticketing app for sporting events, concerts, and other events. They make the buying experience easier by the app ranking each ticket from 0 to 10 to see if you are getting a good deal, and you can see exactly where you are sitting. I regularly use that app, and I have had nothing but a fantastic experience with SeatGeek. Use my promo code ROOFTOPSPORTS to get $20 off of your first purchase. Link to the code, app, and website will be in the description, so take advantage, and thank you. Yep, use that promo code Rooftop Sports for $20 off. So let's take $20 off away from the Mariners and put it towards me this time. So let's do that. And before we get into even the start of the series, and I'm going to explain my claim on where this series was lost, let's go into the fact that the Mariners had a 10-game division lead, and they completely squandered it in 25 games.
Yep.
Which is, I think they're saying that this could actually be the major league record. And before the Mariners did something like this, there was a team called the 1995 California Angels.
Yep.
They had a 10-game lead on the Seattle Mariners.
12-game lead. They had a 12-game lead at one point in early August. Yeah. At one point, I believe it was like August 8th or 9th. The Angels were 12 games ahead of the Mariners before they started their epic collapse all the way through the rest of August into September. So yeah, at one point it was 12.
But yeah, it took 33 games for the Angels to lose their division lead, and that was considered unprecedented. And what the Mariners did, they did basically the impossible. So something that the Mariners are good at, they sure make the impossible possible. So in some ways that is inspiring that I guess anything is possible.
Right. I think this might be the fastest collapse since 1969. That's it's still 100% unexcusable. And when I look at this, and I look at this offense, because I mean this isn't just a scattered bullpen collapse here and there. Yes, that's happened during this tumultuous period. But for the most part, we've gotten very good starting pitching throughout, and starting pitching that's good enough to win. And when I think about what this is, I go back to the first game of this Astros series, which really kind of sums everything up. And it was J.P. Crawford's second at bat. Okay. And they're going against Hunter Brown, who, by the way, did not have a good start. I mean, you look at his stat line, he was struggling. As a matter of fact, he threw a lot of pitches within the first 2 innings, and the Mariners just couldn't capitalize. I think they got runners on in the first when were unable to do anything with it. But in JP's second at bat, this really highlights the problems. Okay. Hunter Brown starts off JP with a cutter in, and he doesn't get the call, and it's ball 1. But he comes right back with a 92-mile-an-hour fastball middle in, not in on the hands, middle in, just a little bit off center, and he swings right through it. A 92-mile-an-hour fastball, and he can't catch up. A 92-mile-an-hour fastball. Usually, what happens on those pitches, and Cal Raleigh had the same issue with this yesterday, where it's like if you get the bat head out in front, that ball is 6 rows into the right field stands, and all of a sudden now it's a 3-run. You got a 3-run home run, and that's and to me that highlights everything. And then as that at bat goes along, he fouls off another fastball that he tried to put down for a bunt. And that got fouled back to the screen. It's like you can't even bunt a fastball. You're late on bunts. And then of course JP then takes a ball, and then he gets another fastball down in the zone, and he pops it straight up for an out. These are the little things of baseball that are required, right? But in totality, if you cannot hit a fastball at the major league level, you do not belong in Major League Baseball. Now, granted, they do have a track record. JP had a career year last year. Julio, for the last couple of years, has been able to turn around his slow starts and have a very good second half. Same thing with Cal Raleigh. But right now, this team is absolutely lost at the plate, to the point where pull side power is not there anymore. I know Julio got a nice pitch yesterday, and he did what Julio was supposed to do. And you want to see more of that. And maybe that, over the course of the last week and a half, Julio has started to hit a little bit better from the pull side. So maybe that is a sign of things to come. But the reality is, I know for a fact that because this team believes in advanced analytics, that they inundate their players with so much information, where they know going up to the plate where their exit velocity or their hard hit rates are better in 2-1 counts. So they have all these things going through their head when they step up to the plate. And there's an old saying in baseball. Okay. There's an old saying in baseball, and that is thinking only hurts the club. I can tell you that the best thing that these guys can do is, if you're going into an at-bat, it's ridiculously simple. The game plan should be just try to get on base. And you should be looking fastball right down the middle and build off of that. But I also know that because of the last 2 seasons where the Mariners had problems with chasing slider low and away, change up low in the zone. Like that was one of the ugliest parts of the last 2 seasons, was a lot of chasing the slider low and away. And so what did they do? What did Scott Service and his coaching staff do coming into this year? They put an emphasis on not chasing slider low and away, and just reducing their whiff rates and their chase rates. And credit, because what it allowed them to do was it allowed them to obviously reduce both of those things, but it also allowed them to work counts. But the downfall is that they're not looking fastball. And as we've seen throughout the course of the season, they're either swinging through fastball or they're fouling them off. And it's, that's the problem. It's like when I think about this, I go back to overcorrecting things that they should have just been, they should have just left it alone. Because I actually do believe that over time they would have stopped chasing on their own. But the reality is, this is chaos ball at its best. That's what Service has called this since 2021. where it's like, yeah, they feast and famine on the fastball, and you should have just let them do that.
It seems that this whole analytics thing, it's being completely overthought. Like they're really just overthinking it. And that's a good point, that all this numbers and everything, I mean, baseball's a very mental game, and when you're hurting the mental part of when you're putting all those numbers, it's overwhelming. Like when we took math classes, math was very overwhelming when we were learning it. And
well,
last thing we need is
there's a time and there's a place for giving players the information before the game, 100%. After the game, when they're going back over their at bats, 100%. Give them all the information so they can formulate a game plan. But during the at bats, or before an at bat, or during an at bat, the last thing you want to do is put a player behind the 8 ball by giving him too much information, and so he's not thinking. He's not necessarily thinking about the process stepping into the batter's box. But the other thing is, I also believe there's a lot of players on this team who believe that this team will not go unless they do X. Unless they hit the home run, this team doesn't win. And it's the ability to believe in the group, believe in the collective, that actually takes pressure off, because they know the guy right behind them is equally as capable. So now you can just focus on getting on base.
Yeah, and like they can just do, some of them can just do the little things, like we've been stressing it for so long, that they don't have to be the hero with the long ball. Like maybe do some of that bunting. And the fact that you pointed out that JP's bunting was atrocious, getting to the back screen, it just proves that the Mariners aren't emphasizing on the small ball. And we're not talking like little base hits. We're talking just bunts and just advancing the runner. Yeah, and they're not even doing that. And there were several times where we have seen it where it's like, hey, you can just bunt, and there's like no outs, and they somehow figured out a way to strike out all 3 times. I'm not saying that was the exact thing, but figuratively, that's how it feels.
But the idea that Scott Service is okay with some strikeouts, you should never be okay with strikeouts. That right there to me is a loser mentality, right? Where you will accept some strikeouts, but for the most part, you want a collective performance. This, by the way, is the worst 2-strike hitting team that I've ever seen. And what's interesting about it is, after A-Rod went on sports radio and pointed that out, I went over the numbers. Check this out. This is Julio, Cal, JP, and Luke Raley, the 4 guys in the lineup that, I call them the core 4, the 4 guys that, you're counting on for production. Julio Rodriguez in a full count, 3-2. Okay. He's batting .205. Cal Raleigh is hitting a $143 with a full count. JP is hitting a $105 in full counts. And Luke Raley is hitting .205. In a 2-1 count, Julio's batting .215. Cal is hitting .093 in a 1-2 count. JP is hitting a $174, and Luke Raley is hitting a $143. This that's the thing. It's like we talk about the little things in the ability to have a short-term memory, where it's like in a 2-strike count, especially with runners on, the ability to choke up on the bat and put bat to ball. You know what I mean? And A-Rod was 100% right. Like Lou Piniella would have taken you into his office and said, literally, dude, you're hitting a $105 with a full count. You got to go down to Tacoma and work on that. There's no accountability. And there seems to be an acceptance that if you strike out, it's okay. But if you go 1 for 4 with a dinger, you got a good game. Like you went 1 for 4 with a home run and you struck out 3 times. That's not a good game.
To add this even further, I looked up the stats for 2 strikes. The Mariners are actually the worst 2-strike hitting team in all of baseball, batting 138, and they are above the likes of Oakland, Chicago, and Colorado. So they're even doing worse than openly tanking teams.
Right. And and again, you can, yes, the players deserve, I guess you can say, the bad credit for it, because they're the one that are performing. But that being said, it's also on Scott Service for accepting flaws instead of openly holding players accountable and demanding that they demanding change from a player. It's like, you're not going to sit there and just swing through fastballs in a 3-2 count, or watch cutters that are down the middle for strike 3. openly, that's the thing. And so yeah, it is on Scott Service, but it's also on Jerry Dipoto, man. He's the dude that built this team. He openly let Teoscar Hernandez walk. He traded away Jared Kelenic, who, by the way,
traded away Gino.
By the way, Jared Kelenic now is, I believe, in a 0-for-25 slump right now. But that's the thing. It's like, everybody blames John Stanton, and maybe there's some blame that you can give to him. But the reality is, Jerry Dipoto does not believe in handing out large contracts on the open market. That is not something that he does, because he believes in roster flexibility and the ability, and the ability to have players that play multiple positions, but also giving that financial flexibility in case he wants to go do something at the trade deadline. Like, he likes roster flexibility and not having more than 3 guys on the roster that are making that kind of money. That's not on Stanton. That's on Dipoto, because that's his belief. He believes in having a draft, develop, and trade team. And we've seen the draft and develop, but we haven't seen is the impact trades. I think we've only seen it once. Luis Castillo.
Luis Castillo.
Really once.
That's it. And he's also the guy that traded away Kendall Graveman right in the middle of contention, and Paul Sewald in the middle of contention.
And oh, by the way, it's like, and then after the debacle of 2023, and Cal Raleigh's comments, which he was 100% right to make, this is the coming off of that debacle last year, and then the September collapse, and now we've collapsed off a 10-game lead. It's Jerry Dipoto. This is 100% on him, and it's also 100% on him to rectify. Like, he cannot have a deadline that does not inspire his team. Like, he has to at least have one trade where it gets headlines across baseball, because it's going to signal to the clubhouse that he has their back. It can't be buying by selling. Allegedly, we bought while selling Sewald. No. We sold. You can't do that either. You literally have to go out there and whether it's Vlad Jr. or whether it's Luis Robert
Jr.
Like, you have to do it. And if that means that you give up an extra prospect, maybe, so be it, because you draft well anyways. You have to do it, and you have to send a message to your clubhouse that you want to win, and you also have to pick up your manager too. I'm sure Scott Service isn't happy right now either.
Before we get more into it, like, there was a clip I saw from Scott Service that had me extremely concerned, but 100%. I also at the same time was not surprised. But when I saw it, it made me go, yep, that sounds like him, and that's the leader we need. But here it is.
It's very interesting. I know our guys don't like to lose, so I know that the clubhouse is much different when we lose versus when we win. We're going through a stretch, and I was talking to somebody about it. The stretch we're in right now is exactly the stretch the ASUS went through to start season. They were struggling early on, and everybody was down on them, and they turned it around. We're in that.
Yep. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that he's a loser. He's 100% a loser. And the idea that you're not pissed off, that you're just casually laughing, yeah, we're having a bad stretch. Oh man, we're just having a bad stretch. And hey, tip your hat to Houston, because they're having a good stretch while we're having a bad stretch. And life goes on. And it's like you're not pissed off. You're not pissed off that Ty France can't hit a fastball. You're not pissed off that that Mitch Haniger, literally his career is ending before your eyes. You're not pissed off that Polanco can't square up a fastball either, that Julio's pull side power seemed to evaporate the entire first half of the season. You're not pissed off that JP Crawford can't put down a bunt on a fastball. Like, that doesn't piss you off. And then this is the funniest thing ever. The quote that he said about Logan Gilbert was that earlier in the deadline, the Mariners had reshuffled their rotation against Chicago to make their top 3 starters available. I believe it was against the Astros the last time they came through T-Mobile Park, because they wanted to have their top 3 going against their chief division rival, and they won 2 out of 3. And now you're coming in off the All-Star break 3 out of 4. So yeah, so they reshuffled the rotation in order to make sure that they had their best starters going, and it's the exact same situation. And so you're going to give Logan Gilbert that extra day rest and allow Brian Wu to pitch against the Astros. And now that you've lost 2 out of 3, and your comment is that we're not playing for right now, we're playing for August and September. And then you kind of chuckle like, yeah, we're we're playing for August and September. We're not playing for right now. Yeah, you're also not playing for October either. Like these are the type of things that get people fired.
It just speaks pure arrogance too, that because he's been doing it for years, like going back to 21, or you might as well go all the way back to like 16, 17, 18. That he was like, oh yeah, we're just saving till October. You haven't even secured a playoff spot. Now, if you do secure a playoff spot with like 10 games left, then fine, sure, do whatever the heck you want. Limit these, put them on pitch counts. When you're secured in the playoffs, and yeah, sure, maybe if only Major League Baseball allowed like 40-man rosters in the end of the season, which Scott Service would have totally like had a crush on, then yeah, you could do something like call up a starter just to give rest. And anyways, but the concern that I have when you're putting Logan Gilbert out for extra amount of time, you're also going to make him a bit more rusty. And yes, you're going to quote make him fresh, but you're also going to make him rusty. Maybe his arm, maybe a bad snap of an arm could happen because your arm is not like conditioned in a way where it's the movement is lacking, unless he's like practicing in the bullpen, which I heavily doubt that he's practicing in between. So that means his arm's going to be stiff.
Well, the fact that they pitched him on a Sunday heading into the All-Star break where he made his first All-Star appearance. And then, it's like if you wanted to give him that extra day's rest, then you should have given it to him on that Sunday, right? And let him go to the All-Star break, come back, and then he slotted in for this game today. Like there was multiple ways that they could have given that extra day. And he still came and pitched for this game, pitched today. I'll say this, right? And I'm going to take this another step further. If he had the playoff track record, right? If Scott Service had the playoff track record, like let's say that they went to the playoffs in 2016, 17, and 18, and then, they had a couple years of rebuilding and they got back to the playoffs in 2021, 2022, and then 2023, where they had that track record where you can be like, oh yeah, we're playing for August to September and it's okay. And you had that playoff record where for a fact that this is what led you to being able to be fresh in September so you can clinch your playoff spot. That's one thing. But he doesn't have even that. He has one playoff appearance in which they had, which came down to basically the last game of the season. You know what I mean? Just to get into the playoffs, right? So it's like, to me, I think he's too comfortable. I think his players are far too comfortable. And there's not enough accountability. There's not enough, like, you need to perform or else. I think these guys understand when they come to the ballpark, they know for a fact they're going to be somewhere in the lineup because they're going to be starting. And and it's like, it's okay. Like we're okay with 11 strikeouts if we score 5 runs. We're okay being 3 for 15 with runners in scoring position because those 3 were like a 3-run home run and like an RBI double. And our pitching is so good where we can win 4-1. Like you cannot be okay with that. There has to be a level of accountability. And to me, if this does not happen this year, if they fail to make the playoffs after being in first place for basically the entire first half of the season, that's it. That's it. I'm done. I am done with Scott Service, and I am done. The only way that they're going to be able to save face at this point is by making the playoffs. Like that is that the next 63 games, for the rest of the season, the next 63. That is it. Like you have 63 games to make me a believer again that you know what you're doing with your pitching staff, that you know what you're doing with your lineup, but also for Jerry DiPoto as well too. Like how bad do you want to win? Do you covet your prospects more than you care about winning? And if you do, that's it, man, because you've had 9 years and you've only manifested one playoff appearance. Not good enough. Not in Seattle. Like, I don't give a shit how fair weather our fans are. You know, because you have the glad happies where they're just gonna be like, yeah, we won 83 games and we finished above 500. It's like, no. Not good enough. Not for a team that only has 5 playoff appearances in damn near 50 years. And we've wasted the primes of Ken Griffey Jr. and Alex Rodriguez and Ichiro Suzuki and Felix Hernandez.
Kyle Seager.
Like, we wasted the primes of some of the best players in baseball because ownership did not want to take accountability and keep consistency. Not good enough. Like, just getting over 500 is not good enough anymore for this team because we've seen that. We've seen that in seasons where, yeah, like, you know, the 2009 season after the debacle of 2008, they came back and won 85 games and fans were like, yay. It's like, no. Fuck all that. No. Not yay. It's like, shit, no, we still have work to do. And they don't do it. They just will not take that next step. And now we have a dude like Jerry DiPoto who will scream from the fucking mountaintops, we're a develop and trade team. Okay, great. Where are the trades? Like, that's why you draft the way that you do and develop, so you can streamline the players at the positions that you need, and then with the other ones that are coveted by other teams, you trade and you augment your 26-man roster and you get to the goddamn playoffs.
Get to the playoffs. That's what we want. And here's another thing: 90 wins, even with a three playoff spot, is still possibly still not enough.
Yeah, not enough. Not enough. And that's the thing, is there's going to be just enough fans who are going to be like, well, they did a great job. And it's like, are you insane? They had first place. They had first place on lockdown and coughed it up because this team cannot hit a fastball. And yeah,
that's the point.
And the guy in the chat room, Packers fan 12, who said the Mariners will finish third in the division, that's a very real possibility.
Oh yeah, it very much is. Man, where was my like this whole thing of frustration just has me lost.
I think you were saying on top of that, you had a train of thought. You were saying like on top of that, and then I interrupted you, and I do apologize.
That's all good. It's all good, man.
I get angry, man. I get angry because
we do, and we have every right to be. Like, that's what both of our YouTube channels for. Everyone is allowed an opinion, even if you're the guy that loves Scott Service and has all that love for him. Say it on my channel. Say whatever you need to say to make yourself feel better.
Well, for years, I keep hearing that, you know, national pundits that usually describe Seattle as a sleeping giant, and there is a possibility it could. We've seen pockets in which the Mariners have been very, very good, but yet they failed to take that next step and capitalize on that momentum. We saw it in the 90s after 1995, after that, you know, that magic carpet ride of 1995, and the Mariners failed to capitalize on it, trading away Tino Martinez and Jeff Nelson. And then it took another 2 years to get back to the playoffs. And then did they capitalize on the 97 run?
Nope.
It took them another 3 years to get back to the playoffs. And then we have 2 straight years of American League Championship Series. And did we capitalize on those two?
Nope.
We missed the playoffs in the next year.
And 2002 would have been an even easier route to the World Series in 2001.
And then we missed the playoffs for 22 years. It's unacceptable. And it's like, it is true that, you know, this can be a sleeping giant, but you need the right people in place in order to manifest that. And I've said it for the last 15 years. I'd love Theo Epstein being in charge of this front office. Theo Epstein broke the curse of the Bambino in Boston, and he broke the curse of the Billy Goat in Chicago. Like, that dude knows how to win within the confines of a budget. He did it in Boston. Like, you know, like you remember that Boston almost had A-Rod in 2003, 2004. Right. And it was because the Players Association wouldn't let him walk back some of that money that he ended up in New York. Right. Boston didn't have deep pockets to spend like that, but he still won he won 2 World Series. And it's like, you know, I'm sorry, man, go ahead.
I noticed this. I know I kind of semi-interrupted too, but when you brought up Theo Epstein, here's what he is, though. He is the senior advisor and part owner of the Fenway Sports Group, which basically means he owns a part of Boston. So I don't even know if you could even hire him anyway.
Sure. You could.
Oh, you could.
It's not. Yeah, you could. It's not like it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. You know, he's invested in the Fenway Sports Group that happens to own Liverpool and the Boston Red Sox. He's a minority partner in that, but that's not the Red Sox. That's just the sports group that owns different sporting franchises, and he very well could. But the question is right now he's got a cushy job with Major League Baseball, and why would he leave that to come run the Mariners unless John Stanton backs up the Brink truck and says, here's $20 million over 5 years. Go ahead and you have this core that's in place. You have Kirby, Gilbert, Wu, and Miller all locked up for at least the next 3 years. You got Julio. You got Cal Raleigh. Go ahead, and you have a loaded minor league system. Go ahead, build around this core, and let's get this job done. Bring in your GM who you like. Bring in your GM. Like I think he had Ben Cherington in Boston, or he had Ben Cherington in Chicago. Let him be your face in the front office, and then hire a manager that, whether it's Joe Madden, he had Joe Madden in Chicago, he had Terry Francona in Boston. Hire that winning manager. And let's get this ball rolling.
Let's get the ball rolling. Let's do this, because we're tired of this. And no more of this, get this assistant GM or like get someone that's a former scout. It's like the Mariners don't have time for that. Now, if it's like a rebuilding time and he wants, fine, sure, have at it. But with a contention window, we have to get someone established. Like there is no time.
Go get Dave Dombrowski, who I think is in Philly right now, who was with the Tigers, who got the Tigers to a couple World Series.
Boston to World. I think he got Boston to a World Series, maybe. No, in 2018, maybe.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like go, and he, of course, he won a championship with Philadelphia. So it's like, go ahead and go out and get a winner. Go ahead and go out and hire a gun and just fucking pay him, and be like, dude,
he was also part of Florida. The Marlins. Right,
so it's like, yeah. It's like the dude has a track record. Go ahead and go out and get that guy. He would basically be Pat Gillick 2.0. He's not here to rebuild the farm system. He's here to win a World Series. Do that.
Let's make it happen. And then after they win the World Series, then it's up to the Mariners on what they want to do after his contract, and whether they want to just rebuild, which most of us fans would be okay with a World Series championship.
But it's like, that's the thing. It's like if they fail this year, and we have 63 games left in the season. We've now just relinquished first place, and there's a good chance that we're going to get swept today. You have 63 games left to get to the playoffs, and this is basically you're playing for your job mode now. There's no more excuses. I don't want to hear about your farm system, and I don't want to hear about how Laz Montez is Yordan Alvarez or whatever the case may be. I want to hear about what your plan is to get this team into the World Series this year. And that's it. That's all I want to hear. I don't want to hear about 2028 or 2029 anymore.
Nope, because by 2029, we'll be fighting Skynet and the robots from Terminator. So we'll all be dead then. We'll be all dead by then.
Yeah, we're gonna be we'll be battling Skynet. That's great.
Yeah, so what's the point, right? Anyways, there was one critical part of that game that if the Mariners had at least won yesterday, I would have forgotten about the Friday loss, which was also extremely pathetic. But has anyone noticed that Gregory Santos has not pitched quite a bit of games? And yesterday would have been the perfect opportunity, especially when the Mariners had a 2-1 lead. Scott Service still uses pretty much a banged-up Ryan Stanek.
Yep.
It was like, I want to know what his thought process is on that, because Santos, who the Mariners were like, they were basically saying, as long as when we get Gregory Santos back, it'll be all good. The thing is, he hasn't pitched since July 12th, and he could have been used on that Sunday on the series finale, first half finale, and he easily could have been used yesterday. So I think that's 2 wins that the Mariners easily coughed up.
Yeah, in the opening game coming out of the All-Star break, with the full bullpen, they used Tyler Saucedo and Colin Snyder, who had a decent showing, and then yesterday it was Ryan Stanek, Austin Voth, and Trent Thornton. A Trent Thornton who has actually pitched pretty well, but I think the I think the reality was that he's been Stanek has been dealing with a back injury. Now the nature of the back injury obviously hasn't put him in a position where it needs to go on the DL, because the Mariners can't afford to have it. But that being said, if you're Scott Service and you know that you have a reliever, a high leverage reliever that's dealing with back issues because of the torque in which he throws, even if the player is saying, no, I'm 100%, you still have to make that decision for him. Where if you're watching him in bullpens and you can see that the velocity isn't there because the torque, because of the torque that he's using to throw, you have to either put him on the 10-day DL and just let that back heal, or you keep him out. Right. And that's the thing. You mentioned Gregory Santos. That would have been a perfect opportunity right there for him to come in. And so, or is it the situation where it's because Santos, has come back from his injury that had kept him out the entire first half, basically, and you don't want to overuse him for fear of injury? So then why the hell is he pitching? Why do you have him on your active roster if you're just going to, not use him? It makes no sense. I agree with you 100%. It's like, that was a perfect opportunity for Santos right there.
And it's like it's ridiculous.
These are the little things that we're talking about, the little things that lead to wins that just seems to elude Scott Service.
And the thing is, even with Stanton, as terrible as an owner he is, which we all agree, I don't even know one person that will defend his ass.
Right.
Despite all that, and even despite Jerry DiPoto's questionable team building, Scott Service or any average manager can salvage this. And yes, Paul Hahn's saying that the offense has got to hit, but right now it's not there right now. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, it's the pitchers that are not. But if as talented as our pitching is, Service could he can maneuver that. Could have easily used Gregory Santos. You didn't have to pull Logan Gilbert after 87 pitches. There's so many little things that I can just pinpoint on each game and say that, Mariners win that game if Scott Service just made one good decision. Even if he made a half-assed decision, Mariners maybe are running away with this division. But these constant decisions he's constantly making is hurting the team. But then at the press conferences, you have Scott Service going, "Oh, sorry,
everything's okay.
These things happened."
What's interesting is that, Victor Robles, who was a DFA candidate, he's a two-time DFA candidate. He comes to Seattle and he's okay. So far in his limited time, he's been hitting the ball. Last night, 1 for 3, scored a run, walk and a strikeout, but he's batting second in your lineup. And that says a lot. JP Crawford last night, 0 for 4. Julio Rodriguez did have the home run last night, drove in a couple runs, but he was 1 for 4. Cal Raleigh 0 for 2, Mitch Garver 0 for 3, Polanco 1 for 3, Dylan Moore 0 for 2, and then he pinch hits. He pinch hits for Josh Rojas, and then with Ryan Bliss, Mitch Haniger 0 for 2 should not have been in the lineup last night. Clase comes in, pinch hit, he came in to play left field late, and then Ty France batting last, and it's it's an 0 for 2 situation. It's the reality is that, we're at that point in time where it's you should hit the panic button, because nothing that Scott Service seems to do works. And if that means that you got a DFA Ty France, do it.
Let Tyler Locklear play.
And give
the sad
Tyler
thing
Locklear
is
some at bats.
The sad thing is, though,
And
the Mariners should not be in that position where we have to play young players. Like, this is a team that really should be contending. So what they really should be doing is, hell, package DFA the boys, even though it's going to cost you a little bit of money. Fine.
Yeah.
Do it.
Fine.
If it means to make room for like Tyler Locklear or anyone like a Vlad Jr., which I'm pretty convinced that Dipoto doesn't even know who that is at this point. Get the Luis Robert Jr. Get at least a Jazz Chisholm that Miles Burkham is talking about. Like, get even that. But my prediction is they are going to stand pat at the trade deadline, and we're unfortunately going to watch that happen a week from now when we have a show. It's going to be the show. I think it's going to be a disaster to the point we're going to be reminiscing about the Vince Coleman and Andy Bennis trades. When that happens, when they stand pat, Cal Raleigh or George Kirby, they are going to snap at John Stanton, and then they'll be traded at the end of the season. That's my prediction.
By the way, Tyler Locklear is hitting 271 with a 373 OBP. He's slugging 466 with an 839 OPS in Tacoma, 4 home runs, 18 RBIs, 7 doubles, 16 walks to 32 strikeouts. It's like that dude has been doing his job down in Tacoma.
He was doing his job here.
I agree. I just think, that's the funny. It's like Miles Berkman's Berkram says trade for Jazz and put him in the outfield. I would actually trade for Jazz and put him at second base personally. He's a shortstop by trade. He's a middle infielder. But that being said, Jazz Chisholm, I would welcome, even though he's not the best bat we can get. I would welcome Jazz Chisholm with open arms. He doesn't necessarily fix the problems, but he definitely helps alleviate some of those problems. So all I know, man, is that I am 100% with you. Like, you have to make some tough decisions. And if that means that you have, like, that's the thing. It's like, I understand not DFAing Mitch Haniger because he was making $15 million this season. So even halfway through, he's still at 7.5, and the Mariners don't want to eat that. But Ty France was only making 4.1 this season. So, you're already halfway through the season. So you're only looking at maybe like $1.5 million, $2 million at this point. So it's like, that's not a lot of money to eat. You can withstand DFAing Ty France at this point without eating just a ton of money.
He is signed through 2024, earliest arbitration eligible 2025, earliest free agent 2026. They can easily get rid of him after this season.
Right. So and that's the thing. It's like there's a good chance he's going to be non-tendered this offseason anyways. And that's the thing. It's like you have a guy in Tacoma who's hitting the baseball, and he actually had a nice preview earlier this season. And it's time to at least reset the first base position. Even if you go out and improve it in the offseason, or you trade for Vlad Jr., I would, like, at this point, I would give him 2 weeks worth of at-bats leading into the deadline.
Paul Hahn, to answer your question, very unlikely due to, quote, don't quit your day job, so I'm not going to take that risk. I mean, and even if my schedule is completely free, there's videos I want to make anyway, and I kind of don't want to cover a game.
I'll be doing a show this afternoon. Usually I don't go on Sundays, but I have a lot to talk about. And Paul Hahn, you can check it out on YouTube at Swinging for the Fences.
You know what? I'll provide the link here. I'm gonna do it for you. Yeah. So going into Sunday's game, what are your expectations? I mean, I think we kind of know what's going to happen. Like, we expect them to get swept, unfortunately.
No, this is a must-win. 100%. This is a must-win. 100, like, without a doubt. You have to stop the bleeding right now. You're on a 5-game skid, and what you need from Brian Wu is 6 innings, 7 innings.
7.
Yeah, like you need Brian Wu to be the good Brian Wu, and your offense has to give him an early lead, whether that's a 2-run lead, a 1-run lead, 2-run lead, whatever the case may be. This is a must-win for the Mariners, just to kind of get those good vibes back, right? Because I would probably assume that right now this clubhouse is not a good place to be around. I don't think it's toxic by any stretch, but this whole lackadaisical, aloof, like, oh, it's all good, man, we're playing for August and September, everything is like, no, No. Like today is a must win. Like today, you have to get a win today. You cannot be swept by the Houston Astros after you relinquish your division lead. Like today is a must win.
And you cannot rely on a bad Angels team. You can't rely on sweeping them, because I also don't want to hear from Mariners fans, oh, it's okay that we lost that previous series. Well, we have the Angels. It's like, no. You can't even depend on that, because you lost to an Angels team where their best hitter is Joe Adell, who is also, by the way, a fringe 200 hitter, and you lost to that.
Right. I just think that you cannot rely on anybody else to help you get your job done. The only people that you can rely on are yourselves. And that means today you go out there and you play one of the best games that you possibly can. I want to see this team aggressive early in counts, like first pitch fastballs. I want to see them swinging hard at that. Get out in front, put balls in play. And if there's a ground ball out or a double play or two, whatever, just be aggressive. Be very aggressive. And do your best to get their starter out early. I just think that there's no excuse, and you cannot afford to get swept today. Like, this is your season starts today. Put all that shit behind you. Put it all. Put the 10-game lead and then your collapse behind you. Let that go. Focus on today. Your season starts today. You have a 63-game sprint to the finish line. It starts today.
It starts today. No overthinking. Scott Service, get off your butt and start putting the hammer. Although I think it's too late at this point, because I think nobody respects him. And Scott Service reminds me of anyone where he's that guy where you like him as a person, he could be a friend, but as a manager, hell no.
My question to you is, let's just say that after today, okay, let's say the Mariners get swept and Jerry Dipoto does the unthinkable and fires Scott Service. Let's just say, okay. And so so what they do is they end up calling up Tacoma's manager to interim for the rest of the season.
I thought they would use Pete Woodworth or
whatever, or whoever. Okay. Do they go on a run without Scott Service?
I think so, because you don't have Scott Service making all these overthinking moves. Now, I've heard also people like, oh, but Jerry Dipoto's telling him to make those moves. But no, Scott Service can make up his own damn mind, which he doesn't. I do expect them to go on some kind of streak, because sometimes it is typical when there's a bad manager and the new guy comes in. It does bring in a breath of fresh air, a new fresh start. So the players are going to be a bit more loose, that they don't have to listen to a guy like Scott Service. And then, I mean, I don't mean to jinx it, but could anyone be much of a worse decision maker than Scott Service, honestly? The only one I can think of as just as bad as maybe Dave Roberts. But for Dave Roberts, it doesn't really matter for at least the regular season, because he has a loaded team as always, because the Dodgers always put him in position to at least be a winner. It's just Roberts just sucks. And imagine if the Dodgers had at least a Terry Francona or a Joe Madden. That team would be a dynasty.
I'll say this about Scott Service, and this is how you know he's not a great manager. Because if he was on the open market, okay, let's say that he gets fired because the Mariners collapse this year. What other 29 baseball teams would hire him to be their manager? Let me rephrase that. Which current playoff team or bubble playoff team would hire him to run their show, to get them over the hump? That would be nobody. Nobody would hire Scott Service after two straight failures in 2023 and 2024. There is not going to be one playoff team that would hire him to lead their team.
No, of course not. And it looks like we are running out of time, but man, did we cover a lot of things. But before we end this, I got a couple comments that kind of got my attention. This one will always get my attention. You think Paul Hahn thinks that we will be worse without Scott Service? Well, show me what you got. I want your case. Say it. Why do you think so? I want to hear it. I won't block you, I swear.
No.
And Lloyd McClendon made much better decisions. You know what? At this point, I mean, would you take Lloyd McClendon with this current team?
Yes, actually. Now, here's the thing. Lloyd McClendon had the unfortunate task of leading a very talentless Seattle Mariners baseball team. He didn't really have a lot of talent. And he also had a GM who did not know how to build a team. So
we have a 7-year plan. That's what he said before.
And so the idea that that's the thing is he was put in a no-win situation. If Lloyd McClendon were in charge of these Mariners, the reason why I think so is Lloyd McClendon is a baseball lifer. He was here before the advanced metrics boom and the Moneyball boom. He has that. He's the type of manager that mixes old school with new school, and plays a lot of hunches. He is basically what Lou Piniella was, minus the World Series ring in 1990 before he got here.
And stealing first base and throwing it into the dugout.
Right. So Lloyd McClendon, not only would he hold this team accountable, but he would also put them in a very good position to succeed. So.
Oh, that's his case. We were first in division. Hey, Paul, I have something for Scott Service just for that. I'll give him this.
By the way, we were first in the division on September 1st last year too.
So yeah, here's my compliments to that comment. A toast, a very slow toast, and it doesn't even deserve a wine. Now, before we completely end this, we're just going to do it really quickly. We just have to say yes or no. Do the Mariners have, let's not say even a significant division lead, but a healthy, not even a division lead I meant, but a healthy division lead under these managers? And I'm going to make it shorter, I'll say after Lou Piniella.
Okay, go ahead.
Bob Melvin.
Yes.
Mike Hargrove.
Yes.
John McLaren.
No.
We're playing our butts off every day. We got nothing to show for it. And that's
I like
it.
John McLaren's a great dude. I love John, but he there's a reason why he was always a bench coach. Go ahead.
Jim Riggleman.
No. Even though Jim Riggleman did have some success with the Cubs, but no.
Don Wakamatsu.
No.
Oh, I was actually a Wakamatsu fan. Darren Brown.
No.
Eric Wedge.
Yes.
Lloyd McClendon.
Yes.
So at least that's crazy that the Mariners were actually blessed with actual decent managers. Like Bob Melvin pops up out of there.
Bob
Mike
Melvin,
Hargrove.
and we know that Bob Melvin can, because look at what he did after he left Seattle. The thing about Bo Mill was that he was the type of guy who just let players be themselves. As long as they showed up to the park to give him 9 hard innings, he always let players he always let his players be themselves. And that reflected in some of the success that he's had outside of Seattle. Not Lloyd McClendon, but Mike Hargrove and Eric Wedge had success in Cleveland, especially Grover. And the thing about Grover was that, again, he was one of those old school guys where it's like, listen, when you show up to the park, you have no excuses. You're here to play and play hard. And he always let his players be themselves as well too. There was never like trying to shoo them into any type of position. He just let them play. And if he gave them hard 9 innings, he usually left them alone. So yeah, Grover was one of my favorite managers after Lou left.
It was just really bad timing what he had, and we could even argue.
He left after an 11-game win streak because he was not left to be alone to manage the team. They wanted, he wanted to move Ichiro down in the order, and the front office wouldn't let him do that. And so he said, you know what, screw this, I'm out.
He even was the idea that introduced Ichiro Suzuki to center field, which I thought was a brilliant idea, knowing his unlimited range coverage. But Ichiro wanted to be right field, and management wanted to make him happy. So that's what happened. Well, and now, yeah.
I know that fans like the fact that Lou was fiery and everything like that, but the one thing the one attribute about Lou that I absolutely loved was that he gave his players a lot of rope. And if you performed, no problem. But if you weren't performing, you weren't playing. And it didn't matter how much money you were making. If you did not perform, you were not playing.
Unless you're Jose Mesa and Bobby Ayala, though. Those two guys got away with it somehow.
Well, right, but that being said, is like who else was in their bullpen that was able to cover those innings, right? So that's like if you remember Bobby Ayala, they didn't have Norm Charlton yet, and then when when Norm Charlton got here, was Bobby Ayala closing? No, he was not. No,
he wasn't. No, he was a 2.86 ERA. That was what he was in '94.
Yeah, it's like he had a good season. Like I'll give Ayala his props. He had one good season, but when Norm Charlton got here, Ayala was not closing. And that was the same thing with Jose Mesa. It's like they had yet to get Kazuhiro Sasaki yet. And then once the Mariners actually got a closer that was worth his salt, was Jose Mesa pitching in those high leverage closeout ball games. He was not. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, that was at the time when they had him. They had to use him because they had nobody else to cover that ninth inning. But as soon as they got somebody else, Mesa was no longer closing.
Yeah, especially when they got Sasaki and Arthur Rhodes, and then Mesa
and Jeff Nelson back, and it's like
Jeff Nelson calling up Brian Fuentes, but yeah. Well, that's gonna do it. And I get okay, fine. Paul Hahn. Why did we fire Lloyd? Because the Mariners stunk the hole and they just wanted to clean house.
Yeah. Yep.
And Mr. Sticky, this is the last one. How much control do you think front office has and had over management? Well,
a lot.
But yeah. Well, that's gonna do it. Thank you so much for being on the show, waking up on a Sunday morning for this show. I mean, the show is going to be available to look at anyway, so we're going to get those views probably, maybe. I don't know.
Must win. Must
win. Brian Wu or Scott Service. If Brian Wu is pitching like a fringe two-hitter, please let him go at least 7 innings, and then Gregory Santos, and then Andres Munoz. Let's do that. It's that simple.
Let's do that. It's that simple.
Very simple. Don't overthink it like you always do. But that's it. Everyone have a good day and go enjoy your breakfast. Go eat something. Go for a walk.
Let's go M's.
Go M's.